Is nothing sacred anymore? Is the question you're going to be sincerely asking yourself. If you ever encounter something like what's behind me here over in this area of the screen, is nothing sacred anymore? I bought a ticket to be a passenger inside of a steel tube, reinforced, cabin pressurized, to go 1,000 kilometers per hour over the ocean, non-stop to Iceland, only to be met with this bullshit. On my long-haul flight, my class 1 flight number, like, 4, maybe, since it's from New York City and not from Germany. That would probably be 1 to Iceland these days, or one of the Nordic countries, probably one of the other Nordic countries like Norway, would be Icelandair Flight 1. But if I'm taking one from New York to Reykjavik, I'm going to just call it that, to the capital of Iceland, to the big Iceland hub airport for Icelandair, so that I can say the Iceland airport is good and then fuck off to my other Icelandair flight to Germany, to do it like that, only to be met with someone preaching, and I've already had to go through the process, okay, of flying to MSP airport with my Toyota Corolla, flying down the freeway with that, and then finding a place to park, and then taking the blue line the rest of the way, just a cheap place to park, literally my friend's house. I would literally park at my friend's house to avoid paying for airport parking. I went through all the trouble to plan for that, and pack for that, and rush off for that, and have real ID for that. Enhanced ID, by the way, proof of citizenship of this country, too. I was actually born in Texas, but don't remember because my parents were smart enough to leave before I could have any long-term memory, before I could grow that as a person. And since having it over time, it has traumatized me ever more since. And I've heard that life used to not work like that. And I believe, with the spirit of the young, and by telling the boomers, hey, you're gonna work on your foundation now, otherwise we're just gonna tear it apart completely. That sort of thing. With that, I believe we can get lives that get happier over time on average in general. Again, but that's not going to happen if someone is preaching. And okay, so you're from Minneapolis, right? You're from Minneapolis. I'm actually in the metro of Minneapolis. I have to drive to find somewhere to park and take the blue line to cheap out on parking. I know my friends could drive me to the airport and back, but I would just prefer to hug at the station, at the blue line station near their house, and just fuck off the rest of the way to MSP Airport, which I would then go on a Delta flight. The problem is Delta does not like to be direct. They like to go to a hub, and sometimes it's just more efficient in their system to get that way, though not on a fuel per mile basis. Just any jet is not going to beat a car with that. The problem is that driving a long distance increases the odds by a lot that someone else's car will beat you, no matter how good of a driver you think you are. Over those distances, it gets tiring. And we do have rail, but I only used that to get to the airport. I had to switch planes in Atlanta. For some reason, this didn't happen from the Atlanta flight to the New York City flight. Or maybe we were both connecting I don't really give a shit who's sitting where, and don't pay attention, and thus tend to not remember people from plane to plane. Maybe she knew she was heading to New York City and was going to cause more of a kerfuffle than the flight from New York City to Iceland, where she was preaching. And you have to keep in mind that this lady in this scenario, which I'm not describing the article, by the way, I'm just saying as a hypothetical, you understand why this could piss people off. To fly, you are generally going to be in that tube, if you're a good driver anyway, at least 2 hours. In the scenario I made up, this is at least a 6-hour flight over the Atlantic Ocean. So, you are not going to survive, even if you are the best pilot in the aircraft and are able to take over and do an emergency landing. You are not going to do a Captain Sully over the Pacific Ocean. Oh, hey, thanks for telling me. I gotta put that back in. Anyway, you're much further away from help and rescue. And as an added bonus, even if you are the best pilot in the aircraft, sitting down as a passenger anyway, I mean, best as in most qualified, um, to try and get past the cockpit doors, which have been reinforced since 9/11. Like a month after 9/11, they made that mandatory. And that has been the only thing. Everything else being a waste, trillions of dollars going to waste, tens of trillions of dollars actually, to fight this phantom, this terror that isn't really there. We really just needed to lock the cockpit doors and nothing else. We didn't even need to do the domestic spying and surveillance, and that's a fact. Anyway, let's say you are this qualified pilot, you get it past the now reinforced, double reinforced cockpit doors. Excuse me. And I believe there are interventions now that prevent another Germanwings tragedy as well. So for those who are concerned, troll that in the comments. Already taken care of, and would not be allowed to happen in Minnesota at any time. Our rules have been ahead of Europe's on that one for a bit, if I recall correctly. So anyway, you're on this flight to Iceland. You get past the double reinforced cockpit doors, and you don't want to do a Germanwings. You want to land the plane in a way that anyone survives. Never mind all the people near a city with access to land and resources that can take care of it quickly. You're going either through New York City, through a major city, through rough terrain that is Iceland, or the Atlantic Ocean. And if you're not emergency landing this plane while doing a Chinese fire drill with the pilot, you're going to be in a distance in the water that is further away from help than Captain Sully ever was. Every time. No matter what. Or you're crashing it on shore and vaporizing the plane. That's what you're dealing with. And imagine having someone come out of a seat, any seat. Absolutely not going to happen in first class. It's always coach, and this Karen ass bitch is screaming, "Hallelujah! Praise the Lord, everyone!" Apparently, nothing's going to happen so far, and I really don't see this as a thing about atheism versus Christianity. It's just polite versus rude. It's civilized and uncivilized, and by golly, this is extremely uncivilized behavior to do that in a metal tube in the direction where most of the people heading back to Europe. This is an extremely clever and careful bitch. In the fictional scenario, I have no idea where the fuck the actual flight is going, by the way. I need to check that. That might have been something this lady has done or would attempt to do if I hadn't warned you about it first and gave you tools to prepare for it in response at the end of the video. That's going to be the most fun part, but it's only going to get more fun from here. I tell ya, I guarantee ya. Absolutely. As well as some Muslims and Christians. I mean, it is a flight to Iceland where people are going to connect through to go to Europe. And the personal advice to Iceland, and speaking as a Minnesotan, that's a Minnesota values and secondhand Nordic values place of thing that I really like. Let me just share some insight. You don't really want to persecute anyone on that passage, even if they want to stay there permanently. And if they're okay with your culture, if they're okay with you naming conventions and other weird oddities and happen to be of brown skin, that's not a problem to anyone, and anyone trying to make it a problem is a crybaby that wants to ruin your country completely. No matter where this happens, once skin color becomes an issue, then the politicians making that an issue are always evil and are always going to hurt you even worse than who they're trying to persecute. At least some of those might get the mercy of death, and you will not. You will just be left with humiliation and defeat and a country and a people that are way less powerful and have way less pride. As a result, don't go down that route, or there are parts of your country that are going to fight back. Like mine. Absolutely. Anyway, so this flight was a few steps from Minneapolis. Again, I don't track the people on the plane. Maybe this is some kook from St. Cloud. Actually, in the article, she's from somewhere else. But anyway, yeah, it keeps going, though. It's not just a praise of Jesus. She is actually serving a sermon on the aircraft. I'm using universal she in this scenario, so I guess for sake of balancing the universals over time, I did a feminism. But honestly, I don't care if I did or not. I had exactly this person in mind as I was reading to you, so obviously I was referring to a hypothetical she. It is more likely to be women who do this shit, because women are just generally more listenable, and people are more likely to have level-headed conversations with women. That's why most devices default to woman voice. You're less likely to talk to it angrily, and it's easier, uses less energy to process when you are giving it commands as a calm person, even though it's using AI. Fewer tokens when it knows what you want and where to get that information and how to present it to you. It has to do less of the guesswork, which is where the AI energy usage just surges exponentially, and you just cannot sustain that path. But I digress. This is some real shit that people are doing. And they've been treating it like it's a subway car. Just shut up. It's just a few more. This is 2 hours at least for normal people, normal Americans. There are abnormal Americans who will do shit like fly from Brainerd to Minneapolis. Fuck all of you and stay out of here if you do that. You can drive. You can be a big boy. You can take a bus. Why don't you spend some more time out with your fellow man? It'll make you a better and more happier person, and I will actually believe you, or more likely will be able to, if you say you work hard. But as of yet, if you do the shit like flying from Brainerd to Minneapolis, you're lying. I know you're lying. Fuck off. Anyway, this proselytizing, first off, it's hateful. Not everyone on the plane, and a majority of most flights in America these days. Yeah, I know, but still. are going to have someone who is not Christian on board. Atheists, Muslims, Buddhists. You're bound to have a Wicca on any flight to or from Minneapolis, and that may be in conjunction with the other faiths I mentioned, or even Christianity, which if you have a white magic Wicca Christian on your flight, they're going to have none of this shit because they are closer to God than you will ever be. In fact, my atheist ass is going to be closer to God than you are ever going to be because you're being a judgmental prick on board and you are saving nobody. You're not just not being a good Samaritan, you're being a bad Samaritan because this is so annoying that no matter where you do this, it's going to drive people further away from God than if you had literally done nothing. If I were God and real, which makes any other God that is not me, like a God that is not me, way more benevolent, so you better be grateful for that. But if I were God and I saw that, I would slap your shit on board the aircraft. But that's God. That's if I were God. But if I were a human and saw this, and I know that most of you watching this are humans, I don't know, maybe there are some other entities, maybe machine, maybe even animal, who might be in the audience. Even you can contribute to this. If you're a chihuahua, just go arf arf, snarl, and just know that anyone going, praise the Lord, hallelujah, as they stand up, they want to eat your owner. But for the humans, there's plenty of ways to stop this. Okay, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you a neat little trick. I know it's on web, but YouTube Music is also an app by the benevolent owners of this website and application where you can listen to music. And it comes bundled in with YouTube Premium, which makes YouTube Premium worth the money. I disagree with everyone who says otherwise. I know that's a hot take. I know that is not the most popular opinion. But I'm not going to pay for music twice. I get the music, and I get to help creators a little more, and I get to feel less guilty if I hear the Patreon pitch. And I still do that for a very single digit number of creators, and that's all I'm really ever going to contribute in the YouTube space anyway. Furry, I don't know. But you go to YouTube Music, right? What you do here is you go and you search. You can search anything. There's even AI search, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Just type in horny music, all right? Type in horny music. There is a specific playlist, and you don't need to buy the Wi-Fi on board. In fact, I might just put it in this here MP3 player I found, this SanDisk, whatchamacallit, that apparently needs a charge, and I just happened to manifest into this reality, almost like a sign from God. Anyway, I'll put some in the Sansa. And I might bring a speaker on board. This doesn't have a built-in one. It's not like a smartphone. The old MP3 players just didn't have one. You had to attach it to something, and usually by aux cable. There's a lot of aux cable accessories that are decades old, but there were like 10 times more that are completely unusable and just disappeared into dust. Anyway, that's from the iPod era, like the 2001 to 2011. Anyway, you go there and you want playlists. Yes, All right, and there are YouTube music playlists curated by YouTube Music. The one I would recommend here, and I can't play the music out loud, but if you know any of these songs, feel free to have a look and a laugh. Here's one called Hip Hop Romance. Crank it up on your phone. If you downloaded it on YouTube Music on your smartphone, if you downloaded a playlist like this, I know they exist on Spotify. Just crank that up. This is more the most likely to be in the vulgar range of lyrics, so that's fun. Fun to have the proselytizer who did not ask if you wanted to hear any of her bullshit spiel. That's something you could do during the sermon if you're clever and fast enough. And I assure you, there could be a chance that you're not, but I encourage everyone to try anyway in a case of real world slapjack when, in the real world scenario, this will happen again. And if you are in it, you can contribute to the world being a better place in the eyes of God and not this woman, which is one I would prefer. So there's that. Obviously, YouTube Music's playlists aren't the only ones. You can make public playlists. You can click community playlists, and party music is the name of several of these. A lot of them have an artist called Bad Omens. Crank that up. Crank that all the way. Crank that ship all the way up. I'm sure there's some in here that are also homoerotic. Just do the shuffle, and whoever's the first wins. Everyone else, on the other hand, you can click that call button, that flight attendant call button, the one that looks like there's a cup, there's a person, and they're holding a cup in their hand. Most normal people fly 2-hour flights, so that would be all the flights. Doesn't really matter where the drink card is, though, and in that scenario, it's going to be put away. So the flight attendants are going to be bored and need something to do. So feel free to press that over and over and keep making the binging noises. I mean, there's someone standing up and going, "Now America is a sin that's being taken over by the ravages of the transsexual pronouns." If you get someone like that, if you get someone like that on your flight, everyone else now has simultaneous permission to be a jackass. But you gotta play the slapjack who gets to play rude, horny music that this bitch clearly wouldn't like first, and the winner gets a free first class ticket. That is what needs to be the policy on Delta. Not just for Christian preachers, but for marketing bullshit people who might be considering it. You sit your ass down, okay? We can tailor this to anyone who disrupts flights this way, willfully and with intent. Oh yeah, the Muslims too, obviously. we're gonna root you back into your seat. The air marshal will take care of you later, if you know what I mean. Um, oh yeah, I hate extremes of all religion. In case you didn't tell, because I have them here, so that makes the people have more freedom to be like, oh yeah, this religioso bullshit. Okay, I don't like any of that anymore now. Please keep that away from me, from my civilized ass. Fuck you very much. Yeah, like if you get someone like that on your flight, then just throw it back in their face. Hit the call button. Like go big, 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 big. Okay, someone tackle this bitch down. Okay, she's disrupting a flight. She's violating my First Amendment right to not be interrupted by this. Your property rights. Okay, we're gonna leave bad reviews if you don't. And I know she wants to do the cry bully shit, but honestly, I saw a video by Clark Macbeth and got ahead of that. All right, because if you're disrupting a flight like this, if you're going to a movie theater, I mean, if they do this at movie theaters, I I think you have a Ninth Amendment right to just physically toss them out of the film. Right, like if you're going to disrupt a movie like this by willfully shouting and trying to bring propaganda to an audience that doesn't want, not only doesn't want to hear it, but is now going to be way less receptive to your message, but you're trying anyway because you think God told you to or some bullshit like that. You think the basilisk is real or something. If you sound a little not right in the head with that, yeah, I think there's a Ninth Amendment right for somebody to push you out of the theater. I mean, at that point, you are in a space that is not political and wasn't meant to be. And that is not the situation at all in which my fursuit head was taken off and where I was justified in going back and grabbing the guy's head and like being like, "Are you gonna get it? Are you going to get it?" He got it. He was going to get it anyway. Like I just wanted to recover my property, and that was it. When he said, "I don't want to fight, the feeling's mutual," but the physical altercation started with him. I really could have been completely apathetic to anything else. But the damage of property justified those actions. Same with the movie theater, but the problem with the plane is you can't do that. Or everyone would die. You can't throw them out, and they wait for cruising altitude to do this. So yeah, the loud horny music, the bing bing bing. Go ahead. I mean, you are taking you are you are listening to that free speech and adding your own. Okay? It's like college protests at speeches. Okay? They disagree with the speaker. They have a right to protest and explain why. And this has what's been lost in the mix of all of our discussions about free speech and politics since 2015. If someone is going to be this rude on an aircraft, you have a First Amendment right to throw that rudeness back at them. And this is what the most effective protests do. Because if you are going to have a sermon on the aircraft where there might be two on an Icelandair flight from New York City to Iceland and heading to Turkey, but also just on that jump to Iceland, um, yeah, you are the asshole. You are the rude one. You are just doing this for TikTok, by the way. You're not even a real Christian. You're just doing this to get the attention and to rile up your own crowd. And none of this is okay, and nobody has to take this, and nobody owes you any respect. Um, the people not bowing the heads are the people who want you to sit the fuck down. They outnumber you and want to make that known that if there is a scenario where we really just zoot all trust and power and really Mad Max snap here, you're going to be the first one for dinner. That's the same message you play when someone shows that they're bold and confident enough to play a community playlist on YouTube called Horny Music, crank the volume all the way up. Okay, you're the winner of that, but you got to keep it going in waves hence the bing bing, and then more loud, horny music. That is the only way to fight back against unwanted, unwarranted, disrespectful, bigoted, and downright rude sermons on an airline called Delta, or, all the others that fly out of MSP, all the commercial carriers. Uh, yeah, you're not wanted to do this. And that goes for pretty much for absolutely every other major airport. Flying flights to and from their locations. I mean, people are going to side-eye you. More than half of the aircraft in the plane of aforementioned douchebags who fly instead of drive to MSP just because, ooh, I have money, I can afford it. When most of the people on that are connecting, by the way. Even the people flying back to Brainerd, more than half the aircraft. Side eyes, and then some more on top of that are going to be doing some eye rolls, and a few more doing that. This is rude. I'm not even going to play this video here. And this Whitney Lynn person. Okay, so a quick summary of the rest of the article. Okay. And it really is Christians hijacking their flight with their voices and being a kind of terrorists. Or they could remind the evangelist of Matthew 6:5. Other Christians should loudly condemn the behavior if they are real Christians and do not believe faith should be imposed like this, because an aircraft is not a church. All the airlines are secular, all the commercial ones. Reeks of privilege. So yeah, airlines, I think you should do not fly this person. But until then, everyone else, do everything I suggested if you get this or someone else doing this on your flight. Gotta humiliate them while you're telling them to fuck off, because you gotta take their behavior, throw it back in their face, and show them the amount of ridiculous they are being to them. That will work. So don't be scared of flying. Do everything I suggested, and you'll be just fine. And if you're looking forward to that, if you're looking to having fun with it, as always, subscribe if you like, and share if you care.